I can't find my cursor. Here it is. Okay.
All right. Welcome to Authentic Caregiving. We're talking today with Sharon Hundley-Parker, and I can't wait. You're going to fall in love with her. It's awesome. Welcome, Sharon. I'm glad you're here.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be fun, I hope.
And Sharon is, lest you think everything goes great, she is without water today at their place. So I can't believe you showed up. That's really good. One thing we were talking about earlier was that I never ever, I spent 13 years caregiving for my mom. I thought, I can do whatever I want to now. And 1 year later, almost to the day, my husband had his injury, a spinal cord injury. So, and I never ever would have wanted to be a caregiver. I would never have applied for it. I would never have been, oh yeah. Sometimes they said at the assisted living place, you should work here. No. How about you?
Well, after my husband died, about 7 years ago, I think now, the oncology department said, would you consider coming back and being a patient advocate? You are so good at this. And I said, I'm never stepping foot in this building again. So the answer was no. But that was after I'd been a caregiver for almost 20 years. So that was the end of my caregiving for a while.
Wow. Now,
when you get to be 70 years old, you can count on being a caregiver again.
Stop.
Unless you die first, That's
all glory.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, 5 words that you used to describe your lifetime until now.
Well, I thought a lot about this. And one word I've always used about myself is I'm a Pollyanna. If you ever seen the Pollyanna character in the Disney movie, she just loves everybody and nothing is ever wrong. And she sees the best in everyone. And no matter what troubles she has, she just is happy and keeps going and la, 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 la. And that's me. I was blessed with this, I am sure. The only thing that I think could have contributed to my being a Pollyanna was the fact that I was never put down as a child. I was never scolded. I mean, if I did something wrong, but I mean, nobody called me idiot or stupid or any of those names. We were poor as dirt, but we were idyllically happy. We were loved and nurtured and kept safe all the time. But I know that God just gave me that personality. So, and the other word that I have always told people is that I'm gullible. Now, not just in the sense that my husband would tell me the same joke 48 times in the same day and I don't catch on, because that is true. But the gullible that I mean is when I read scripture and it says that God has promised me an abundant life, or that God will take care of this, or that God is working on my behalf, or that God is this or this is, I believe it. Settled, done. I don't have to worry anymore because, God is God and he said so. So I have, of course, grown as years go by in the amount of trust and whatnot, but I have always known that God had my back. And so every time there is a trauma, a trouble, a catastrophe, chaos, I just go, okay, God, help me figure this out, because there's a story about a husband and wife, and she says, this was back in the days of bench seats in your truck. Remember your bench seat? And so when you're first going out with your boyfriend or your husband, you're plastered against his side and his arms around you, and there isn't room for a hair between you. And so this wife, she says, honey, you're just, you don't hold me anymore. We're not as close and blah, blah, blah. And he looks at her and he says, I ain't the one that moved, because he's still driving the truck, right? So I knew that if there is a time when I don't feel as close to God, or if I'm not hearing from him, God says, I ain't the one that moved. I'm the one that moved. So I need to take care of it somehow. And so I would just pray and, he would show me. The other one is determined. So I wanted a lot of children and I had a lot of children. And I was determined to be the best parent, the best wife, the best housekeeper, the best everything that I ever could be in everything I do. So
Wow.
I used to hate laundry. So I applied that same gullible thing. God said that He's promised me an abundant life. I hate laundry. God, I don't want to hate laundry. I want to love to do my laundry because you've promised me an abundant life. So when you give God permission to do that, then He just gives it to you because you're not fighting fighting at the goads.
Yeah.
Is that the term?
Yeah.
You're like, here, God, fix me. I want to be fixed. I want to do this right. So I am now one of these strange creatures who loves to clean. I am right now getting ready for a kitchen remodel beginning Friday. They're going to come tear out my kitchen floor to ceiling and walls and everything. So we're emptying our whole kitchen, turning our living room into a kitchen. And it's hard work, but I'm having so much fun because I'm cleaning all my drawers and sorting through everything and whatnot. So, and the other blessed or idyllic, I don't know how to separate those two words. I have lived an idyllic life because I have never had to fight or stress or doubt God. I've had tons of trauma in my life.
Yes, you have.
When I was young, my brother went missing. He's been missing for 40 years. We never had any closure on that. I've had a husband die. I've had a divorce that was quite ugly. I've had many miscarriages. I have had garages burned down, almost houses. I've had children reject the Lord. I have had, found my husband dead. Lots and lots of trauma in my life. But always I was able to just say, God, you're here. You help me through this. And He always did. And then the last word is a parent. I was born to be a parent. I love being a parent. I loved the childhood part. I never resented getting up in the middle of the night with my babies because it was a time when I could be alone with that particular baby. Because when you have 11 children, you don't get a whole lot of alone time with your baby, especially when the teenagers always want to hold the baby when they're awake. And so I had one baby, Matthew, I was like, no, you can't hold him. It's my turn. So he actually was one that got up less in the middle of the night. Thank you, Matthew, if you ever see this.
Right? He's a great. Yeah.
So those are my 5 words.
I love it. Oh my goodness. We need to hang around. Pollyanna, you're gullible. You just believe scripture. That's true. The abundant life. What a great word. And you think you've had an idyllic life.
I have. I was loved by my parents so much.
Were they Christian? I mean, did you go to church with them or?
We did go to church. I'm sure my father was a believer. My mother insists at her death that she was a believer, but I always wondered. She had a hard time walking the straight and narrow. She struggled a lot more than I do, although she was an overcomer and an amazing woman. She taught me so much, so many of what attributes that I believe I have. She taught me. When we would be somewhere and she would see a child who was maybe mentally retarded, which was a word you could use at that time,
right?
Or obviously in a wheelchair or something, she would come and hug me over the back and pretend to pull my pants up or fix my shirt. And she would whisper in my ear and she would tell me to thank God that that you were whole and that God had made you healthy and smart and beautiful and wonderful. And so that's the kind of confirmation and affirmation I had all my life. And she taught me one of the sayings that she had was, I met a man, or I felt bad because I had no shoes, and that I met a man who had no feet. And so she taught me gratitude and gratefulness all of my life in everything, no matter how poor we were. But she wasn't one that mourned about her poverty, or she just worked harder. She just dug in and worked harder. So I never felt, when I got to be a teenager and had ugly clothes, I didn't like that much, but then I got a job and bought my own clothes. So, and I still had ugly clothes because I didn't know how to have good taste. But anyway.
Wow.
I'm finally comfortable in my skin, so that's okay.
That's awesome. Well, how many siblings do you have?
It depends on how you count. I was
Go ahead.
raised with 5 siblings when I was, well, 4 siblings, 5 of us in the home. And then my mother and father got divorced, and my mother remarried, and I had 3 new step siblings from that marriage. And I lived with them for a while, and I got to know them, and I was semi-close with them. One of them has become a Christian since then, and I have reconnected with her on Facebook. Plan to go see her someday, so that's kind of cool. And then my father remarried, and I got 4, but only 3 living new siblings from that relationship, and we were very close. They were just my brothers and sisters. So there would be, let's see, 5 plus 4 is 9, and 3 more is 10, 11, 12. So I would have had a dozen of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What's one of your favorite memories of your childhood?
Of my childhood.
Or teenage, whatever, before you're married.
Well, for one thing, I don't have much of a long-term memory. That's one of the things I'm not good at. I found a picture. I found a picture in an old book, and I looked at it, and it was a picture of me. And I was in this person's wedding, and I actually have no memory of that. I can't come up with that no matter how hard. I have prosopagnosia, which means you have no facial recognition. I'm not that bad. I have some facial recognition, but some people have it really bad. And so I think because of that, maybe that's part of this memory thing, because I also have I can't see cars. I mean, I could get in a car. I could go to a car lot and buy a new car. Well, I've done this. Come home with my car and not have any idea what it looks like. So I have to memorize my license plate number so I can find my car in a parking lot, because I cannot tell you. It's gray. So, and I think that's part of my retentive memory thing. So I don't have too many memories of, I guess my one memory would be, it's kind of a big memory. It's an overall memory. And that was the freedom we had as children. My parents worked. We were latchkey kids without even knowing that was a term. Although there was no key, we didn't lock our doors back then.
Right.
But my cousins, my best favorite cousin, who I caregived for 7 years before she died, lived, oh gosh, half a mile away. We walked everywhere or rode our bikes when they were working. And we went everywhere. We went down the railroad tracks, put pennies on the track and watched the train run over them, way too close to the train.
Yes.
We found old buildings and we went into them. We went to the rock show every year. That's one of my favorite memories, by Twelland Valley Gem Club that was in the old armory.
Yeah.
We just had so much freedom, and we had a wonderful, safe life. I mean, thank God nothing ever happened to us. So I guess the childhood freedom and the lack of television. We didn't have television much. So
yeah. So what was the challenging thing? Do you have any challenges?
The challenges were, let me think. Well, probably I didn't have what you would call when we moved from Gales Creek to Forest Grove when I was in third grade. Anyway, I was mad about moving from the country because I had such a wonderful life there. And I was like this in school the whole time. And I got blessed with a wonderful teacher. She was not a believer, but her name was Mrs. Brady. And her husband was Darrell Brady, who was the school administrator. Yes. Yeah. And then he was later my boss.
Oh, wow.
For years, for a while. But anyway, Mrs. Brady was so smart. And instead of slapping me around or knocking me in the head and telling me to get over it, she specifically made me her project. It seemed that way to me, and tried to soften my heart. And so I can remember the day that happened. We were singing the Star Spangled Banner or America the Beautiful. Now I can't remember which song. And I was a very patriotic person. And I literally just took my hands down and I felt my heart melt. And I went, I can be happy in this place. And And then and that was, that was the end of my resentment. And I was happy from that time on. Then the next challenges were when I realized we were poor. And we were the geeky kids. We didn't have good clothes. And as much as we were loved, my mother hadn't taught us social manners. She didn't have any herself. So that was pretty hard to pass on. One of the chapters in a book I'm writing is learning from the bathroom crack. So I would sit in the bathroom and I would watch how the girls in the girls' bathroom behaved, and I would learn from them social graces. Oh, you wash your hands after you go potty? Oh, I didn't know that. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I would watch how they would talk to one another and the things they would say and how they dressed and what they did. And because girls would spend time in the bathroom chit-chatting.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot that way.
So what
the bathroom
is the name of your book? What is the name of your book?
My book is Please Don't Feed the Bears.
Oh, wow. I love it.
Anyway, but so the challenges then was to try to overcome this poverty when there was no way. I didn't have money yet until I was 14 and I got my first real job. All our clothes came from the Goodwill, and that was before that was fashionable. You can go to the Goodwill and find tons of stuff. And as I said, my mother's taste was all in her mouth. And so she didn't dress us well in spite of the fact that she could have from Goodwill,
Yeah.
And so it was hard. That was a challenge, was trying to feel comfortable in my own skin when I wasn't. And here I was, this determined Pollyanna. And I will not let depression or unhappiness or circumstances affect me. And so I fought against that for a long time. So.
Wow. Tell me about your young married life, kids, your second marriage, your current one,
So my first marriage started when I was 17 years old, believe it or not.
You were 17?
I was 17 years old.
Oh, girl.
And I thought I could survive anything that ever happened. I didn't believe in divorce. My mother had been married,
right,
and divorced.
Yeah.
Well, she'd been married 4 times, divorced 3 times. There was no way as a Christian that I was ever going to be part of that. I went to Bill Gothard. I had all the tools. Nothing was ever going to cause me to get a divorce. And so at the risk of blaspheming my first husband, which, the flesh in me says he deserves it.
Yeah.
But the Christian in me says, I'm not going to do that. We ended up divorced. And people would say, I thought you didn't believe in divorce. And I said, if you can wrap your head around it, then try to live in my shoes, because I don't. And I still don't. So that was a hard time.
That was very traumatic then for you?
That was quite traumatic. Yes. Yeah. It took me quite some time to work out of that. It was a long time before he quit owning me in my own self,
wow.
You know how they, unless you come to complete forgiveness and whatnot, you're still owned by that.
Yeah. Yes.
Thing, that circumstance, that person, that whatever, and that was a hard one.
How long did the marriage last?
Well, 11 years, because at 7 years, at 7 years was when things got really tough, and he started a little philandering, a little grass is greener kind of stuff. But I determined that, because I didn't believe in divorce, that we could overcome this, and I could get past that, and I could be happy anyway. By this time I had 4 children, and so I pretty much wrapped my life around my children. And well, at 7 years I didn't have 4 children. Let's see how many. I only had 3 by then. No, I had 4. I had all 4.
Wow, I didn't know you had that many children with. Okay.
Well, I had my first child at 20. And then it took me 6 years to have my second birth child. But in the meantime, we had adopted Daniel, and then we adopted April shortly after that. So I had 2 adopted children and 2 birth children at that time. And so anyway, I stayed married for another 5 years, and then the circumstances forced me to not be married anymore.
Yes. So. And I don't know when you were living in that huge greenhouse, on by Pacific.
Next to the park?
What?
Oh, you mean the mortuary house?
No, No, well, I don't know. It's by Pacific there. It was
Across from the theater? Across from the
no,
theater? No.
no, down.
I lived on Elm Street and I lived on Cedar Street, and they were all big houses. None of them green.
No, well, I came over to get my niece and nephew, and it's the first time I'd ever met you. And there were kids everywhere, it felt like, because I didn't have any children. And I picked them up, and you were cooking at that time, the 30-day cooking in one
Oh, yes, for freezing the meals, yes.
And I'm like, you're what? It was so far beyond me. And I was like, this woman, she makes things happen.
So
like,
that would have been Stacy's,
yeah,
Stacy's children.
Yeah, no, Stacy and Luke.
It would have been Stacy and Luke, Charlotte's children, yes.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know what house that would have been at, whether it would have been, so we lived next to the mortuary when I was married to Rob. There was the mortuary, and then there were the two homes owned by it, and I lived on the one to the westish, southwestish. Anyway, excuse me, just a minute, somebody at my door. Michael, someone's at the front door.
Well, they were really, the kids were small. I know that.
Well, I did have a lot of kids, and I took in kids, and I love children. I was born to be a parent.
Wow. So, tell me about your second marriage, and how did that come about? How did you meet Bill?
So he went to the church that we went to, that we'd been going to for years and years and years. And his first marriage had ended in divorce a couple of years prior.
Oh.
And so we were in the second, excuse me, just a minute. Who was that? The pump guy. Yay. That's funny. He never comes to the front. Interesting. He usually just lets himself in because he's a frequent visitor in our home. Anyway, so I knew him there, and he wrote a self-reflective treatise on what God had been doing in his life, and the pastor read it in our Sunday school class, and I went, wow, there is a godly man. I want to get to know him. Now, he'd been divorced for 2 years, and I had been separated but not yet divorced for about a year. So I invited him over for dinner, and the rest is history. So
you couldn't have been more opposite, though.
That is true. That is very true. But we had a wonderful love relationship we had a wonderful marriage for 32 years. We did not have a wonderful, like you said, soul relationship, because we were opposites, and because I am very outgoing and talkative, and he is the polar opposite of that. Words did not escape his mouth. Thoughts did not come from his brain spontaneously. So, but I loved him dearly, and we had 4 children that lived. We had many miscarriages.
Really? I didn't know that.
I had 8 miscarriages. So I had 3 second trimester miscarriages where I was rushed to the hospital, hemorrhaging and bleeding. And yeah, I spent a lot of time in emergency rooms. But anyway, I think I will get to see them in glory. So
I believe that. Yes.
Hard to imagine, if I have 11 here, I'll have a lot more there. So
yeah.
But anyway, we had a good relationship. We did a lot of fun things, and we had a lot of relating before he got sick. For the first 15 years, we were on our honeymoon. We had a 15-year-long honeymoon. Madly in love all that time. Never quarreled. I never quarreled with my first husband. I'm not a fighter. I don't like to fight. I don't like to be angry. I don't like to raise my voice. I rarely did with my children. Anyway, so we had a wonderful time for 15 years, and then we bought the grocery store. Don't buy a grocery store if you want to be happily married.
Oh.
It was a very trying time.
Oh, really? Oh,
it was also wonderful, fun, because there was so many fun parts of it too, but it was hard on the marriage. So, and then somewhere in there he got sick, but he was sick without, quote, being sick. He didn't, but the things that were happening, the toxicity, the what do you call that disease? When your blood poisons you,
sepsis,
toxic shock, sepsis.
Oh,
sepsis, septic shock. The septic shock didn't kick in for a long time, but he was experiencing it and we didn't know. There was no way to know. He started having periods of amnesia and he stopped being able to talk and he had fatigue but we didn't know. It was terrible migraines. Oh my gosh, the worst migraines that could be in
Did you
existence.
still have the store at that time?
For part of that, yes. Yes.
Wow.
So we lived here in the house here where I live now.
Yeah.
So we had the store for 8 years, and then I think we lived here 3 or 4 years maybe before he got ill. Before we knew he was ill. But like I say, he was ill before that. We just didn't know. It was very strange because he'd have amnesia. He would just blot out what happened the day before, and we would tell him something, and he would say, "Don't treat me like." He thought we were gaslighting him.
Oh.
Because he had no memory of what was. So we just had to learn to, if something came up that he didn't remember, just immediately drop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I remember about Bill was when I'd come in the store, he was very quiet, and I liked that. I married a quiet guy, but he was quiet, but he would always say a joke.
Oh,
and
yes.
just straight faced.
Oh, you
And I'm
couldn't
like,
tell.
What?
You could not tell. And
then I got to it. Yeah.
And then Michael, who I married, is the same way. I cannot tell if he's joking.
Oh.
So Bill used to say, when he would tell me something that sounded a little far-fetched and a little hard to swallow, and I would accuse him of telling a joke, and he would get angry. And I would say, how am I supposed to know? I can't tell whether you're joking or serious ever,
Right.
So I think he came to grips with that and came to understand that, and plus being so gullible, I believe everything that's told me. No one would lie to me, everybody's nice. The world is wonderful. And
oh my. Okay, tell us about Michael, your third marriage. Yeah.
Okay, so let me lead up to that. First of all, so the last several years, so I was married happily, wonderfully happily for 15 years. And then we bought the store. So then I was still married happily, but there was no communication. In the store, you just ran the store. We were just like pedaling as fast as we could to keep up with life. And I'm still homeschooling and working.
And catering. You did catering.
And yeah, well, that was part of the store, but yeah. So anyway, so then things got here. Then we remodeled the store or the house because the house at the store, which was attached, so we lived in the store, it had never had footings put under it. And the flood of 96 or 98, 98, I think, there was also under the store because the creek had been rerouted. And so there was a spring under our store, under where the footings weren't. And so it washed them away. So we're sitting at the dining room table one night and plaster is falling on our table. And the house separated because here's the store and the house, here's the outside siding of the store. And our dining room was the outside siding. And the house had just been like put with 2 nails up to it. And so when the footings went out over here on the right, it just separated. So we had to build a new house. And that was a hard time. We had no laundry. We had no kitchen, except what was in the store. And that taxed us to the absolute limit. And so some things happened, just life type things that caused us to battle one another and to become angry with one another and unforgiving. And we had a period of unforgiveness. And I'm here to tell you, anybody that's listening, unforgiveness is the absolute worst thing. I mean, Christ came to reconcile us to God. That is what the whole entire mission, story, purpose of the Bible and of Jesus Christ's life is. And if you are in unforgiveness, don't count on a happy life because you're not going to have one.
I know.
And we went to a marriage seminar at Christian Renewal Center in where the falls are.
Silver Creek Falls.
Thank you, in Silverton. We went to a marriage retreat there, and I was upset. He was upset. We were so mad. And the lady stands up and she starts talking about forgiveness. And I did my 3rd grade thing again. Cross my arms. literally. And I said, there is no way I am going to forgive this man. I am not going home with that. He deserves everything he gets. I am not going to forgive him. And so as they talk, and I was like this for a long time. And before the first evening was over, though, my arms came down and I was listening. And it took 3 days of the retreat to get through to me and to make it so that I would indeed forgive him. And we went home, both of us. God did a work in our hearts, and we went home. Now, so that was about 4 years of misery, maybe 3, I don't know. And then after that, we're trying to recover and we're trying to rebuild while we're running the store. And that was pretty hard. And so then we sold the store, we moved up here, and things began to get a little better. That, you know, the 15-year honeymoon is gone. That can't be retrieved. You know, life changes, and don't ever expect anything to go back to what it was. It'll be different. It might be better. It might be worse. It might just be different.
Yes.
So we got up here, and then he started getting really sick. And so when we left the store, I said, okay, I have to have a job because we don't have any income. And so I prayed, you know, what am I going to do, Lord? I don't want to go to an office, to a 9-to-5 job, because I don't like working with women. They're catty. They're gossipy. They're whatever. And so I'm like, I don't want a 9-to-5 job where I'm going to be in an office with women, and I don't want to go work with a bunch of men. So what am I going to do? So one day, now, mind you, Bill's praying about this too. He's got to do it too. And on the same day we came together, and he goes, you know, I think I'm going to go be a caregiver. And I said, that is so weird. I think I'm going to do that too. So he chose to be caregiver to the mentally disabled, which I could not.
That
and
is
he was,
gift.
he was so good at it, being patient.
Yes.
My son-in-law, Tommy, is the same. He's an armed security guard. I don't know if he's armed right now, but he can diffuse a situation just because he's so calm. And that's how Bill was. And he could stay calm in anything. And because he didn't need to have communication, because he didn't, he could be with them because they couldn't communicate other than nonsense, you know. I don't mean that in a bigoted way at all, but that's, you know, just that's what it was. And I decided to become a caregiver to the physically disabled.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where this came from. I guess it was because I had been caregiving for my mother. And I don't know. It was from God, because I had never, ever, I was not good with sick people. When my kids were sick, I said, if you wake me up in the middle of the night to puke, you're in trouble. The bathroom is there. You go take care of it. The house is on fire or you're dying. Let me know. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it. So I used to go, I had a rental in my basement at that time. And I would go down to my renter, Mona, and she'd be holding her sick child. And I'd say, you know, child, you're one lucky baby, because I don't do that.
Well, with 11, I mean, let's be real.
Exactly. You know, I mean, when they're babies, of course, you know, but you know, it's like, I don't want to be puked on. I don't want to be diarrheaed on. I'm not going to do this. So then I go be a caregiver for the physically disabled. And so that's the prelude to when I was done with that. When Bill died, I said, I will never get married again. I loved being single. I loved the freedom. I loved the independence. I loved the empowerment. I loved nobody to run a decision by. I could do whatever I wanted. I had my children to take care of me. They were all adults by this time, and they were at the family meeting after Bill died. They all got together, and my one son had spoken to each one of them and said, what role do you play in Mom's life? And he assigned them. Chaz was my, what am I on? Computer, my tech man. One of them was to bring music into the home. One of them was to teach me how to shoot. One of them was to whatever. And they all took.
I love it. Wow.
And they cared for me wonderfully. It was so wonderful. So there's no way I was going to marry. So I was teaching. I went to become a master gardener.
Yes.
Actually, I joined the class in March, and Bill died in May. So I had to do that, though, even though I knew he was dying. I had to do, I was like beyond, I needed something to think about besides this. So I got my master gardener that year, just after he died. And no, just before he died. Anyway, So I was teaching a class through the Master Gardener program at the Gales Creek Church. And it was a seed to supper class. And not looking for a husband. I've been single almost 4 years, loving every minute of it, you know. And so I have prosopagnosia. You got to remember this.
Yes.
I don't see people. So I'm teaching this class. There's 12 or 16 people in there. And one of them was Michael, and which I didn't know because it was just a human being with no face to me, you know. So I'm teaching the class and he is looking at me going, he does it like this, wah, 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 you know, because he fell in love with me that night. And I didn't know he was. Well, on the Facebook page, you know, there's a Forest Grove community page.
Yes.
So I'm on that and I make comments. And so he started making comments, me not knowing who he is because I have no memory. So I'm like, who's this guy that's always commenting on my posts, you know? And eventually he started making comments about class and stuff. And I'm like, who is this guy? What class? And then he started talking like he knew of me or something. And I'm no idea, not a clue. And finally I said, okay, Lord, who could this possibly be? What class is he talking about? And I tried to word things. Finally, I figured it out. He was in that class. And there were only 3 men in the class. And so I'm remembering who it was. And I'm like, him? I was not interested, not attracted or anything. So after a few weeks,
at that point, how long had you been single? From
almost 4 years. Almost 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
No, almost 4 years when I got married.
Okay.
So 3 years at this time.
Okay.
So he finally eventually made a friend request of me. And I'm like, I don't know. And I thought, you know, he seems pretty benign. I'll go ahead and do it, you know. So he, and so every few days he would say something to me, and once in a while I would talk to him. And so, and I can remember I was at Master Gardeners at the plant sale in May 6th, I believe it was. And you know, when you send a message to somebody, your little face, your little icon comes up, your little picture.
Yes.
And his picture came up and my heart went, dink. And I went, no, I will not let this happen. No. I was so annoyed. I was like, no. So I quit talking to him for a few days. And I said, why did you keep pursuing me? I was so mean and so rude to you because I was like, I'm not marrying, so I'm not going to get to like this guy, you know?
Right.
But he knew, he goes, well, God would just tell me what to do, you know, to get you to come back and talk to me on Facebook again. And that's almost the entire year was Facebook. So in that time, I vetted him in every possible way. I asked every kind of question that you ask somebody.
Yeah.
And then I started to go, this guy is too good to be true. No one on earth is like this. He is one of those guys that has this Facebook persona. And when you meet him in real life, he's going to be a jerk. So that was about the 3rd or 4th time that I said, no, I'm not talking to you. I said, nobody is as good as you. You're pretending. This is a put on. You can't be real. There is nobody like you on the face of the planet. And he was really hurt and really upset with me. And so then he waits a few days and God told him again what to do to weasel his way back in, and he did. And so I'm talking to him again. There was about 2 more times that I said, no, the end, no. Finally, a piece of the puzzle, he said the just exact right thing. And the reason he couldn't make me believe all the things he was saying is because he will not slander anybody. And the circumstances in his life were such that if he told me all the pieces to the puzzle, he would be putting down somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't sure I could trust him. Mm-hmm. And if you read back on my old posts, I made a post when I got an Instapot. And it was a post about trust. And if you read it all up until the time, you think it's about a relationship, which secretly behind the scenes it was. And then at the end of it, I say, and it's my Instapot. And how did I live without it and whatnot. And this was really a story about my relationship with Michael and how it had progressed and grown. So you'll have to look that up sometime. It's pretty funny. But anyway, so finally I decided he is who he is. And I had just begun to start to tell my children that I had somebody in my life, and it wasn't going quite as I expected it. They were not as pleased with my relationship as I was. And we got married, eloped. So that kind of made them annoyed as well. So anyway, but here's the end of the story. He is everything that he said he was. He is the most amazing person that I've ever known.
And he's talkative as you.
Well, see, that was what I told the children when I was single. I says, I'll never get remarried unless the man talks more than I. And they said, well, you'll never get married because that is impossible. So, and he does indeed talk more than I. That was one of the things I was entranced with, was I would say, tell me a story. And he would just tell me something in his life. And I didn't have to talk. I just sat there and listened to him and got to know him through these stories. He has 3 children. We're going to meet one next month while the remodel is happening on our house.
Excellent.
And the other 2 I've met, they've come up and stayed with us, and they are even more talkative than he. So I love them just as well. And he's delightful. He's funny. He's sincere. I've never, ever had a spiritual partner before, even though Bill was a wonderful, godly man. He walked his talk, is what I put on his headstone. But we didn't pray together. We didn't read the Bible together. We didn't do anything. And Michael and I have that. And so that has been a balm that I have needed all my life. And
feeds your soul.
Oh my gosh. I thought the term soul mate was fake, for real. I was poo-pooed it. I said, people just say that because it's mush, you know? I did not know that it could even happen. And I swear we're the Bobbsey twins separated at birth.
That's awesome.
People say, well, isn't there anything you don't like about him? I says, yes, he dips his Oreos in his milk.
Ooh, that's wrong.
That is sad. I know. And so that's it, you know, there you go.
Hey, let's go back to you being quickly a caregiver. Let's see. You were a caregiver for a cousin, your mom.
I had 4 clients at one time. So my cousin had a disease called dermatomyositis and sarcosis of the lungs. And she was supposed to die in about 5 years. She lived 7, and I was her caregiver for all that time. And she had a personality change at the end where she became mean. And then I was a caregiver. Well, yeah, my mother, she was a sweet, wonderful person all the way through everything. And then I was a caregiver full-time, or almost full-time, for Kim. She was an MS patient, progressive remitting or whatever. Anyway, the bad one, completely bedridden, no ability to go to the bathroom, couldn't feed herself, anything. Sweet, sweet woman. And then I had some very part-time clients. One wonderful, godly woman. All of them were Christians that I cared for. She ended up dying of liver cancer, but I cared for her for a while, mostly just housekeeping. And then another one who was 98 years old, oh my word. And I was mostly just a housekeeper for her. I came in once a week, and or maybe every other, I can't even remember now. They both ultimately died. And then my cousin, Joan's daughter, after those 2 died, I took her on. She had, I'm not sure I'm going to get the words right, but a stroke, a very young stroke called Mori or something like that. I can't remember. So she didn't have all her facilities anymore, and she was almost looked like like she had CP, cerebral palsy at birth, because she lived on the left side. So she couldn't talk well, and she couldn't reason well, and she couldn't do anything for herself, really. She bathroomed herself and mostly showered herself, and but she couldn't clean house and whatnot, and she couldn't raise her children and whatnot. So I cared for her as well. She's still alive and doing well.
Wow.
I married she and her husband, and they're still married. So that was a fun thing too. But as Bill got sicker and sicker, more sick, proper grammar here, I had to drop clients because there just wasn't enough of me to spread around.
Right.
And my cousin, who I did not want to drop, I had to. because she had the personality change and she started getting very mean.
Yeah.
And I would tell her I was on my way, and because I was taking care of Bill, who, I had to, he's obviously my first priority. And then she would just scream at me and berate me for not getting there on time and not being there. And it was a flex hour program. So it was, I'll give you my time when I give you my time. But the not being first and the not feeling like she wasn't cared for and all that got all messed up in her mind.
Right.
And I had to quit her.
Okay, so how do you deal with grief? How have you dealt with grief over the years?
So, well, my Pollyanna attitude helped. My knowing that God was going to take care of me through everything helped. My believing that all I had to do is ask and he would give it to me helped. Apparently, I stuffed a lot of grief without really knowing it, because on my near to the last miscarriage was a second trimester miscarriage. And it was the only miscarriage that I was able to know anything about, because I didn't spontaneously abort my miscarriages, and I had to go have them, the second trimester ones. All the others that were right away, I did. But I didn't know anything about them because they would die weeks before. And then if you know anything about this, they just disintegrate.
Yes.
But this one I had changed.
Go ahead. We can't hear it very good, so go ahead.
Oh, okay. My computer is talking to me. Anyway, so I changed midwives from this day, Friday, when the midwife came and listened to the heartbeat. And then Monday, I went to a different one. Just changed for no particular reason, and there was no heartbeat. So that was immediate. So I went in and had an ultrasound, and the baby was dead, and it was a girl, and it was deformed. They could see that as well. And so they had to remove it. Anyway, but apparently I was under anesthesia for that. And when I came out of anesthesia, the doctor asked me a bunch of questions, and I'm like, why are you asking me these questions? I don't get what you're, I feel like this and I feel like this, and I'm perplexed with the reasoning. When I grieved like nobody I've ever seen. And he says, I'm worried about you. And I go, wow, I didn't know this about myself. I had no idea that, I said, my baby, and just wept and mourned and I don't know what all I did, So apparently, that was one of the avenues for me grieving, and now it takes an act of Congress for me to cry. I'm not a person who cries. I will cry if my children are in a presentation and it's adorable and I love them and I'm endeared to them, and I cry at happy endings, but I never cry from grief. I just never have.
Interesting.
But apparently I did then. And then ultimately when Bill died, I had a few days of crying. And what I cried about was not that he was dead, not that he was gone, but why did he have to suffer so much? That was what my grief, how it presented itself,
Yeah.
But I tell people, people always say, I don't know what's worse, going through a long, prolonged illness or having your husband die immediately and not know it. When I was a caregiver for Joan, we went to the pool in Hillsborough, and one lady was missing out of the class, and she came back, or we asked where she was or something. And her husband had come home from an errand, sat in his truck and had a heart attack. She went outside to say, what are you sitting in the car for? And he's dead. She didn't know anything about it. And her grief was just profound. And other people I've talked to who have said that they didn't know that their husband was going to die. Well, like Carrie, they go through a different kind of grief. I had 4 years of a terminal illness.
Yes.
4 years. And he died twice. He died twice because I found him in the car dead one time. And then the pharmacist performed CPR and brought him back to life. So I had so much time to grieve. Plus, we'd been called into the hospital like 4 times. Call your children. This is it. And then it never was it. So I had so much pre-grief, and I was so exhausted by the time he died.
Yes. What's the greatest myth about caregiving? Just one thing. What do
I
you think?
couldn't come up with any answer for that.
Really?
I haven't heard any myths. I don't know.
Okay.
I pondered on this and I laid out asleep in my bed, or I wake in my bed going, what is a caregiving? I don't know.
Okay. What are the top 3 values that you live by?
I'll have to look at that one. I don't remember. Value as a person. Values. I don't think I answered that
Wing
one.
it. Wing it.
So 3 values. For me, wow, I don't have secrets. What you see is what you get.
I love that.
I never will play games. I guess that's number 2. Never play games. I don't ever say to my husband, you didn't notice that I cleaned the kitchen. If I did a big old job, I'll say, honey, look, see, because a compliment is a compliment if it's genuine. I mean, whether you had to dig for it or not, because it isn't like my husband wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to ignore everything my wife does this day.
Right.
He's just living his own life, you know? So
Okay.
he didn't, so I believe that being open and honest and no game playing is really, really important. And then of course, the other value is if you don't have Christ, you have nothing. Your life is for nothing. You know, it says that the Bible is just going to wash away all those deeds. All the wonderful things you did are going to be burned. They aren't going to stand for nothing. So please, if you don't know Christ, find him, because that's the only thing that it matters for eternity.
Sees you through. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. If you're face to face with a caregiver, what advice would you give them?
Never argue with your client. Never say, if they say something in their dementia that doesn't make sense, don't try to tell them they're wrong. For crying out loud, just go, oh, really? And the other thing is have broad shoulders, because they're going to accuse you of things that you did or did not do and that were or were not wrong.
Yes. Because
their world is very small. Their world is so small that they dwell on things and things become of huge importance to them. And you just, I didn't clean the garbage can one time at Kim's house, and her husband came home and found it. Now, most MS women don't have husbands anymore because the MS personality is such that it's very difficult to live with. And he stayed with her until she died, and he was a saint for that, but he didn't act saintly. He was always irritated and always ignored, and he was always angry when she acted that way. Mm-hmm. And so when he could take it out on me, that was better. So he noticed the garbage can and he had a raging fit over it, which she had to put up with. That was hard on her. I'm not there at the time. I know nothing. So when I got back the next day, she says, you have to clean the garbage can, blah, blah, blah. Now, I have to tell you, when you caregive for the county, there is parameters. And no, you don't have to clean the garbage can. But I did everything. I didn't have to do Jim's laundry, but I did it. I didn't have to do a lot of things, but I did them. So when I was remiss at cleaning out the bottom of the garbage can, that's pretty petty, and I was pretty annoyed. But I just said, I had to leave the room for a minute. I prayed and I came back, took some deep breaths, and I came back and I said, I will see to it that I never do that again.
That's good.
I shouldn't have had to say that.
Okay, so what's number 3?
Broad shoulders.
Broad shoulders.
Be kind. Just be kind. Don't be snippy. Toward the end, when I was so burdened, Kim had to ask me if I was in a bad mood that day. And I was so ashamed because I wasn't being kind to her. I was being short, and there's no reason to be short. Like I say, their world is so small. They depend on you for everything. You are their eyes to the world. You are everything to them. And if you present yourself that way, you have ruined their whole day. You are their connection with the outside world.
Yeah. So what's number 4?
Share of yourself. I would say tell her things that went on home, because as I said, you're the world to them. What do you call it? What's that? Not incognito. What's the word? When you vote, proxy. Okay. I had to present things to her. I had to tell her things about my children. Otherwise all she saw was the TV, or what came into her life through her husband, And so give them something to think about, give them something to know about. And I would try to say, what's your advice on this? I never took it because she wasn't all there, but it was like, I would say, oh, that's a good idea.
Everyone asked.
Give them some way to be an adult still, because they get treated like such a child.
Okay. I love it. Okay. So you are your 17-year-old. Oh my gosh. Were you you were a senior in high school?
Yeah, I'm not 70 yet. I'll be 70.
17. When you were
17 when I married. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Were you a senior in high school then?
I had graduated.
Oh, you had. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you have told your 17-year-old self?
I thought about this one too. I have no regrets and I have no remorse over my life. I wouldn't have not married and missed that. I wouldn't have done anything differently, even though some of the trauma happened. It all prepared me for who I am now today. And, Michael and I sometimes say, I wish we'd met earlier. And then we go, no, we wouldn't have been perfect for each other had we met earlier. We are, the life we have right now is idyllic because of who we are and what we learned in those past circumstances. So I have no advice for my 18-year-old self.
Wow. I mean,
I love me and I love the way my life went in spite of the tragedies that happened in it.
Wow. Okay. Last question. If you were remembered for one thing, what would you want it to be?
That's simple. She told me about Jesus.
Aww.
I heard a song one time. Oh no, it was a poem, I believe. I'm not sure which it was. At Pat and shoot, they lived in Gaston. He had a blueberry orchard. Wonderful, wonderful, godly people.
Hines.
What was his name? Pat was her name.
Yep, I know. I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I don't remember.
Me too. But anyway, at his funeral, they read a poem or sang a song, I can't remember which, that talked about the people that came up to him when he got to heaven and said, remember when you did this? You told me about Jesus, and remember when you did this, and remember when you did this, and all these people that were in heaven because of him. And at that moment I said, oh, I want that to be of me. When I get to heaven, I want to bring a whole train of people with me to glory. So wow. I don't know how many I have. I've only a handful have I ever sat down with and quote prayed the prayer, but I have tried to show God's love, and you aren't with me 5 minutes before you know that I'm a believer, because I don't say, oh, this person is probably not a believer, so I better not talk about God to them. Nope. Both barrels all the time. So
I love it.
Every clerk, everybody that should say, how are you, finds out I am good because God is good, or whatever I choose to say that day. So
I love you, Sharon. I just love you so much. You are just
the feeling is mutual.
I love that you're Pollyanna. You're almost everything I'm not.
Oh, but you're K now. Oh my goodness.
I know.
God makes us all for a purpose. We cannot fill one another's shoes.
Yeah, no. But I love your spirit. I love your honesty, that I never have to work at knowing you. And thank you so much for coming today.
Oh, this was more fun than I thought it would be.
I knew you would.
Not the interview. The interview didn't bother me. It's sitting in front of this screen. It's all I can do not to have a panic attack.
Well, you did great. Thank you so much.
Computers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and blessings on you.
Blessings to you also.